I actually could probably tell that story. That's a good one.
Hi, Iris.
Hi, I'm actually at a doctor's office, so I will probably have to disconnect, but I wanted to come in and say hello to everybody. And I'm sure it's going to be a lovely, lovely and informative meeting.
Thank you.
Hi, Iris.
Hi.
Hey, Iris.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi,
Hi,
Ira.
Amy.
Everybody. New York is well represented here, right?
Here we go.
Absolutely.
Hi,
Make
Florentina.
sure-
Someday maybe
Hi.
we'll return the favor and do one of these for the New York area
Yeah.
movies.
Well, Philadelphia is always welcome to attend ours. We have one coming up later this month that we'll have a panel discussion. And we'll be
Absolutely.
representatives from 3 different European countries to talk about Europe.
Oh. That's actually how I met
Philadelphia,
June, through like
here.
a joint function, right, June? Remember?
That's right, Florentina.
We went around
That's right.
Manhattan on the little cruise, and that's how we met many years ago.
I actually met June before the Scotland trip, but we got more connected when we went to Scotland together.
Which was exactly 2 years ago today. We were checking into the Crown Plaza in Edinburgh, Iris.
Oh my God, it's true.
That was lovely.
I believe it was 2 years ago today.
Wow.
Hey.
love it.
Mr. Meyer, how are you?
Hi, Frank.
Unbelievable.
All right, so I think we are going
Hi.
to go ahead and get started here. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If everyone can put themselves on mute, unless we're at the Q&A portion at the end. Feel free to utilize that chat feature if you have any questions that pop up. Our speakers here, Joan and Sharon, will be answering questions towards the end of the program. And yeah, feel free to chat away and continue some of your conversations there. So hello, my name is Amy Bendekovitz, and I am the president of Skal Philadelphia. I'm pleased to partner today with Skal New York to bring you the program, which is featuring the Greater Philadelphia Film Office. And I'll turn it over to Wayne for a brief hello. Wayne, I think you're muted.
Wayne, you're muted.
I am. Sorry about that. Thank you, Amy. What I was saying was I think my headshot there is pre-COVID, as my hair is a little bit longer now. I forgot that I had ears, but thank you for allowing Skal New York to be present here. And we know it's going to be a great program, and we'd love to continue to keep our line of communication open, and hopefully we'll have plenty of the Skal Philadelphians to attend some of our upcoming meetings that I will communicate with Amy on as well. So we do have some New York colleagues here. So it is a New York Philadelphia thing. And I think nobody can pull this off better than these two clubs when talking about film tourism, etc. With that said, I believe I'm turning it over now to allow us to do our Skal toast. So I'd like to introduce Frank Clare, Treasurer, if you'd like to go ahead and take the toast duties, Frank.
Thank you. Be delighted to have you all join me in the toast. Fellows, so if you have a glass, please lift your glass, your cup, whatever you have. To fellow colleagues everywhere.
To fellow colleagues
Fellow
everywhere.
colleagues everywhere.
Happiness,
Happiness.
Happiness.
good health,
Good
Good
health.
health.
Good health.
friendship,
Friendship.
Friendship.
long life,
Long life.
Long life.
Skal.
Go.
Go. Thank you, Frank. So for our visitors today, our Skal toast is done in every language all across the world, and it's a way that we use to start our meetings off and, use those terms, and that's how we live our lives here at Skal. So that was our Skal toast.
Great.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Mariska, which I didn't see her on here a minute ago. Looks like Mariska might be running a few minutes late, so I'll go ahead and introduce the Greater Philadelphia Film Organization. We have two very, very distinguished speakers with us. Oh, hi, Mariska. Mariska?
It looks to me like she is just getting on.
Okay, we'll just give her a brief moment here. Hi, Mariska. All right, I'll go ahead and continue introducing just until she gets hooked up here. So as I had mentioned, we have the Greater Philadelphia Film Office joining us today. We have two very distinguished speakers who have been with the organization for a very long time. We have Sharon Pinkinson and we have Joan Bressler. And today you'll hear about how films bring tourism and hospitality and much more than that to the Philadelphia area. Obviously, I'm sure you all know many of the films that were filmed in Philadelphia, some of which we were talking about before the program. But today they'll be sharing some stories and some history about how the Greater Philadelphia Film Organization started. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and grant you control here, Sharon. All right.
Cami.
Hi, everyone. Move this out of the way a little bit. Well, hi, everyone. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, Joan and I are both delighted to be here. Mariska, I saw you there. I wanted to say hi. We're just delighted to talk about our favorite subject, which is making movies and television series and TV shows and commercials and documentaries and student films. And we've been doing this jointly since 1992. So we have a little bit of background in attracting productions and also in bringing tremendous amount of tourism to Philadelphia as a result of the film industry. So I'm going to see, how do I move on to the next?
You should be able to accept the screen share. Did you see that?
I can control it. I see. Okay, so use
my apologies. I was having serious technical issues.
Is that Mariska?
Yes, I'm
Hi.
sorry. I'm now on my phone. Did you introduce the incomparable Sharon Pinkinson by now?
I did.
Oh, I was so looking forward to saying the incomparable, the amazing, the fashionista, besides all of the other wonderful things she is. My apologies, Sharon, and to all the other folks who are on. I just had some real challenges here, and now I'm just using my phone.
Well,
so sorry to jump in, but
we actually saw you. We actually were able to see you when you were confounded about whatever was going on. So we saw you.
Well, that was a good. Hey, that's
second.
a good look. Thanks. Great. Sorry about that, folks. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go right ahead, Miss Pinkinson.
Oh, thank you. So as you can see on this screen, I did not plan a career in the film industry. I actually opened a boutique in Philadelphia eons ago called Plage Tahiti, and began my career in fashion. And after maybe 6 months, less than a year, in this boutique, we moved into a much bigger store, and I started designing a collection called Plage Tahiti, as well as the clothes that I purchased outside. So it was very exciting. I kind of grew up in the menswear business. My grandfather manufactured neckwear, square bottom knit ties called rooster ties. And that's how I learned how to sew. And this was a terrific career until, frankly, it was the time when so many of my friends in the fashion industry were getting sick with AIDS, this mysterious disease that we were all terrified of and didn't understand. No one understood it in the beginning. And I lost many, many, many friends who were really hit terribly in the fashion industry in particular. And it was too sad, and I needed to move on. And I sold my store to dear friends who had other boutiques nearby, and they continued to call it Plage Tahiti. And I was figuring out what my next move would be when an old friend reached out to me, knowing that I'd been a fashion designer, because there was a television commercial that that they thought I might be able to help with. And because I was the only person in Philadelphia at the time that they could find that could not only buy clothes, but also make clothes. So my very first television commercial was a morning zoo where I had to dress all the DJs. Here's a flashback. It was about Sandinista gorillas, and the DJs were dressed, I had to dress them as Sandinista gorillas, but I also had to dress the chimpanzee. So I can tell you, I could talk all day about the insanity of that, but it was great fun. And that was the beginning of my career as a costume stylist and a costume designer. And my career went on for 8 years, making commercials and movies when they came to town, which was not very often. In 1991, we were having a mayoral election in Philadelphia, and it was Frank Rizzo, who had been the infamous mayor of Philadelphia, who was running against Ed Rendell. Very near the end of right before the actual election, Frank Rizzo suddenly died, and they weren't going to put up another candidate. And Ed Rendell, who was also extremely popular, became the mayor. And at that time, I asked I was in the union for a number of years, and I was the only woman in the executive committee for the local branch. And I said, you know, they've got this great new mayor coming in. He's talking about economic development and tourism and bringing fresh money into the economy and all these amazing things, but he's not talking about the film industry. And we should go talk to him. One of us has got to go. And they said, okay, you do it. So I found myself at a meeting during the transition with the mayor-elect, which was quite terrifying, at the Palm in Philadelphia, where everyone wanted to come and talk to him. And I managed to hand him a proposal for a regional film commission. Our counties are Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, and Philadelphia. And he was very interested in tourism. It was the flavor of the week in those days, was regionalism. And actually there's a group right now that are talking about renewing regionalism in this area, which I think is a wonderful idea. And so enough about all of the history. I ended up becoming the film commissioner. I was only looking for this new mayor to rejuvenate a film commission that had been started in 1985, and really nothing was going on for the last almost 3 years. And I got the job and was very nervous about it, but I realized that I knew what to do. And one of the smartest things I ever did at the time was to hire Joan Bressler, who's with us today, and has been with me since 6 months after I took over. So the two of us have been great partners over a number of years, and we were very committed, my team very committed to attracting production in Philadelphia, knowing, frankly, right from the start, that it was going to be a great producer of tourism. You get to see Philadelphia on the big screen or the little screen. It is a really terrific, and by the way, thank you, Amy, for handling the slides, because I couldn't figure it out, so I appreciate that. So as you can see, we started out as a nonprofit 501c3 regional film commission serving the 5 counties. And the first thing I learned to do with the politics was to say them in alphabetical order. We got to work right away trying to let the industry know that we were back. And working with the new mayor on making sure that Philadelphia was going to be as film friendly as possible. And we set up programs and policies at that time that frankly are in place today. And you can see what some of them there are on the screen. So trips to LA, so the filmmakers in the studios and independent production companies would get to know me by in person, and obviously I'm going to have to go back to LA whenever it's time to be able to travel again. But I was going once or twice a year at least, or to festivals and other events where I would get to know the filmmakers. And I think the very first movie that shot in Philadelphia, which I think you'll probably not remember at all, or guess that it would have been shot in Philadelphia, was a movie called The Age of Innocence. So my very first director was Marty Scorsese, and that doesn't get much better than that. And my second, well, and the reason they came to Philadelphia, by the way, speaking of the tourism connection, is that they needed there you go, the Academy of Music. And that's exactly right. They were looking for a 19th century opera house that was very authentic. And they were looking all over the country. And here we are, the Academy of Music, which is absolutely perfect. And so all of the set pieces were shot in Philadelphia. I have to turn this off, apologies. So that was the beginning. Shortly after that, we had a call from a producer named Ron Bozeman, a New York producer who had just worked with Jonathan Demme on the movie called Silence of the Lambs, which had won the Oscar the year before and was shot in Pittsburgh. And Jonathan Demme wanted to make this movie that was a movie that really did not have a complete concept. And there was a first round of the script, but it was a story about a lawyer who had contracted AIDS. And of course, this was already, as I've told you, dear to my heart as a subject. And I wanted this movie more than anything. And the reason that we actually got the movie was because it was a courtroom drama. And the movie Bonfire of the Vanities had been a movie that everyone had read the book and could not wait to see the movie. And the movie was a disaster. And one of the problems was they couldn't get a courtroom. They found some courtroom that, in New Jersey. And Jonathan really wanted to go home because he had spent a long time in Pittsburgh and he was a New Yorker. And I convinced them to come to Philadelphia because, my goodness, our Philadelphia City Hall at the time was our main, was where all of our courtrooms were. And I knew, because of my relationship now that had been developed with the new mayor, was that we would be able to do that. We would be able to take over a courtroom for the entire period of the show. And the name of the show, the very first script that I got, was called At Risk. The script was okay, but then the second draft of the was called People Like Us, which was a terrible title. And then the next but the script was getting a little better. And then it was I forget. Oh, there was I don't know. There were several different titles, and finally, they had no title at all. We started shooting the movie in City Hall in courtroom 243, I think. A magnificent courtroom, and they were able to use it for the entire period because, in fact, it was a courtroom drama. And we made this movie without a title. It was like working on a Woody Allen movie, you know, an untitled Jonathan Demme film, or Spring, you know, to call it this Woody Allen's fall project. Well, this was Jonathan Demme's fall project, and everyone in the crew was asked to come up with a good title for the movie. And I remember we took a Christmas break, and right after the holidays, we came back to shoot for another month to finish the film. And I saw Jonathan Demme, who, by the way, we became incredibly dear friends. He passed away a couple of years ago, and it was devastating. But I went up to Jonathan and he said, Sharon, I want to tell you something. He said, we've decided to call the movie Philadelphia. And quite frankly, I could not even, I didn't even know what to think. And I started like huffing and puffing, and I said, I have to go call my mother, because I couldn't believe it, that we were having this incredible opportunity that they were now naming a movie for Philadelphia. It doesn't get better than that. So that was really the beginning of what's been hundreds of movies and TV shows. And I wanted to point out a few that I think are particularly interesting with regards to attracting tourists. So of course, City Hall from the movie Philadelphia, but many other locations as well for that movie. And then Night Shyamalan's movie, The Sixth Sense. I can't tell you how exciting that was, and how many locations became very famous because of Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense and the twist in the film. So people were coming to go on tours. And I think at this moment, I'm just going to throw it off to Joan Bressler, because I want her to talk a little bit about how we monopolized on this opportunity to show off Philadelphia through our movies. So Joan, you want to jump in?
Joan, you're muted.
Here I go. Okay. Hello. We have to talk about Rocky, even though that was before our time. I mean, you never pass the art museum without seeing tourists standing next to that statue, taking pictures. I mean, you know, the art museum steps have become the Rocky steps, you know, in a very crazy way. But it's all about the civic pride. It's all about feeling good about your city and people being interested in your city. And Sharon and I were talking about Concrete Cowboy, that I hope people are going to see if they haven't seen yet. I mean, to me, if I lived somewhere else and saw that incredible, incredible scenario, I would want to come and see what it looks like close up. So I think that we continue to put ourselves on the map with these different movies and these different scenarios in Philadelphia, because we can look so different at so many different times. We actually some years ago doubled as a third world country with a digital river being put in front of Eastern State. So, I mean, we can be anything. We've been Paris. We were Paris for the Transformers movie. Limitless was the Bradley Cooper movie that was supposedly set in New York, but it was shot here entirely. And we certainly got lots of, you know, kudos for that, even though it was a New York story. Everybody knew it was shot here. And, you know, what am I thinking? I'm spacing on the Bradley Cooper, Jennifer Lawrence movie title. Everybody knows what it is. It was shot in
Silver's Lining Playbook. That one?
Thank you. It just wasn't coming into my head. And that's another one. I mean, people just wanted to sit in that booth, and people just wanted to, you know, to visit those areas. And there's so many of them. You know, Sharon and I did for the RNC in, I guess, the year 2000. We did a location tour. Sharon had the mic and I pushed the buttons on the VCR, you know, in the bus. And we took, you know, the people that were visiting Philadelphia for the convention all over the city to see the different places where movies were shot. And it was fun and it was interesting. And, and that tour went on for quite some time. Even, somebody else was running it after that. And maybe we'll bring that back sometime. But I know that there was somebody that came into town that was actually shooting postcards of those locations and posting them online with the scene of the movie. So, there are just so many ways that we're reaching out and making ourselves known through the movie industry. Dispatches from elsewhere. I mean, Sharon's calling it a Valentine to Philadelphia, and I truly believe that it is.
Thanks, Joan. I actually, if I could just jump in. Oh, I am unmuted. If I could just jump in for a second. We love doubling for other places. It's a bonus. It's great, but it doesn't impact our tourism. So the movies and the TV shows that are actually set in Philadelphia, that's the real bonus. And so I'm going to skip through a few others that I think are particularly important to us. So we spoke about The Sixth Sense and The Age of Innocence, where we actually used the Academy of Music. But there was The Italian Job, which was a great old city and all over Center City movie. National Treasure, another one that was really terrific. And lots of it was at the Franklin Institute, and tourists were piling in to come and see the locations. And it's an extraordinary building. And Independence National Park. I mean, our National Park Service friends were a little skeptical about having filming down there because it is National Park Service, but in the end, it just brought more and more visitors, and it was great. There was the In Her Shoes movie where the Rocky Steps were once again famous because the main character was running up and down the steps, and Famous Deli was a great location in the film and brought a lot of business. Law Abiding Citizen was another big City Hall movie. And as we mentioned, Silver Linings Playbook, where Jewelers Row was actually highlighted, and that was great as well. So of course the Rocky films, I think we personally worked on, I think I'm on like 8 or 9 of them. But the Creed films, we count as the Rocky films as well. And we've had Creed and Creed 2, and they're talking about possibly a Creed 3, and Sylvester Stallone is talking about a prequel. We never know, but we certainly don't turn that business away because every single one of them have been great, except for the one that was shot in Russia. So you have to make sure they keep making them in Philadelphia. And also the world heard about the word John in Creed. So, we're impacting the language as well. And people are learning about Philadelphia culture. So, and as Joan said, speaking of culture, Concrete Cowboy is a fantastic example. The movie's just come out on Netflix, and it's about, it's a fictional story starring sexiest man alive, Idris Elba, and it is really about the Black cowboy culture in Philadelphia, which has been around for over 100 years, and it's really quite a remarkable story. Working right now are shows that are coming out. Actually, this month is Mayor of Easttown. So so this is a film that it's a television series on HBO, and it's being released sometime this month. I'm sorry, do you remember the date, Joan, when it comes out? Anyhow, Kate Winslet is the star, Oscar winner. Spent a lot of time working on getting her Delaware County accent. And I think it's going to be just a phenomenal attraction for people to visit these areas in Philadelphia. There's nothing like a big movie star that helps it, along with great locations. It's, by the way, it's a murder mystery, and Kate Winslet plays the only detective in a very tiny police department in Delaware County. So it's going to be actually quite amazing. And I hear that she's been brilliant in it. We're working on a film called Hustle, which is a Philadelphia basketball movie starring Adam Sandler. Production came back last summer. Of course, everybody went home in March, and the film industry created specific protocols, very strict protocols for how to work together. It was almost like the NBA bubble. Everybody ended up having to live together in suburban hotels as opposed to in the city in this case, because they didn't want the crew and the actors to try to go to restaurants and take any chances. And so depending on what their job was in the film, it was everybody who was close to the camera. So actors, directors, producers would live on one floor of this suburban hotel. Then the next floor would be grips and electrics and other, crew people. And then there were other people who never actually had to visit set. They would just be like location scouts, for example. They would just report electronically, and crews would go to visit. So it was astounding how great our industry came back. But the Hustle movie, they had to take a break because they couldn't do any of the basketball scenes during COVID. So they'll be coming back this summer to finish the movie. And I can tell you that our colleagues in tourism, the Convention and Visitors Bureau and Visit Philly, they benefit greatly, and they love to write about the movies, TV shows, and that are shot in Philadelphia and the stars that are here. And it's really a tremendous asset for them to create packages for coming to Philadelphia to follow up on the work that we've been able to achieve in the Philadelphia region. So that's kind of in a nutshell, I think. I didn't give Joan, oh yeah, you might want to show some of the other things. We didn't, oh right, Night Shyamalan's Servant 3, we're shooting Servant 3 right now. And we know there's going to be a season 4 as well, which is really very, very exciting. And there's, and I know that the poor neighbors that live on the block, which is what we call the hero block for this show, it's going to be a very popular location to see where Servant was shot. So I think that's basically,
Sharon,
I mean, if there are any questions.
Sharon, do you want to tell them about the tax credit, a little bit about the tax credit?
Well, sure, I'm happy to do that. I mean, for those that are not so familiar, the coin of the realm in the film industry these days, and for many, many years now, are incentives for filmmakers to come to a location. And the very first incentive was from Canada, actually Toronto, and we film commissioners at the time were calling it the giant sucking sound, where all the business in the US just like moved up to either Toronto or Vancouver. Everything in California moved up to Vancouver, and everything on the East Coast moved up to Toronto. And we are the only country in the world that does not have a national film commission. So we had no one to go to in government. And after a couple of years of struggling and trying to figure out how we were going to do this, we had to, each of us, to lobby our state governors and our state governments to try to get an incentive going. And the very first year were 2 states, New Mexico and Louisiana. And the following year, Pennsylvania was one of the next 5 states. And you just can't survive without it. So it is a critical incentive to get this really, really great marketing tool to your state. And obviously for, I think everybody here is either from Pennsylvania or from New York, and New York has a legendary tax credit program and is enormously successful. So, so Joan, thanks for talking about that. Joan, why don't you take a few minutes to talk about the wonderful work that you do through Greater Philadelphia Filmmakers?
Well, I see on the screen, there's a slide about SIP, which is our Set in Philadelphia Screenwriting Competition. That is the way, it's really one of the only ways that we help people develop their projects. I mean, development is not our thing. You know, we help with production and on the ground production. But through the program that I run, Greater Philadelphia Filmmakers, we try very hard to help our locals to connect, to be able to do their work, you know, in our region. SIP, we have been running since 2002. It was something that was around before that and attached to the film festivals. And I was actually a reader for that program, you know, very early on. But we have just finished 2020 and we've just opened 2021. We have expanded the prizes. We have a regional prize. We have a prize for writers of the African diaspora. We have a prize for women. Or people who identify with women that have a connection to the Greater Philadelphia region, and we have a student prize. And all of that is new under us. A bunch of these have been attracted judges. You know, we have very high profile judges that have some connection to Philadelphia. They're producers, they're actors. And the top 5 scripts that we get in front of their eyes, and they are they're in a position to make them happen. So that's our way of getting the Philadelphia stories out there. And it's one of our favorite programs. It's very, very close to our heart.
Absolutely. And Joan has been running that program now for quite a number of years. All of our prizes are cash prizes. And the thing that's so great about it is that they're all have to be set in Philadelphia, be able to be shot in the Philadelphia region, because we are 5 counties. And you know, the finalist judges in this group, because the hardest thing in the world for screenwriters is to get people to read their screenplays. And in a screenplay competition, the screenplays are read by many, many, many people. Joan, how many rounds are there ultimately?
You know, generally 3, sometimes 4. You know, we're now on a platform which has made, you know, my job considerably easier as opposed to writing on a legal pad, which I was doing, you know, 15 years ago. But they score them, you know, down to a 1/10 of a point, you know, on a whole bunch of different criteria, you know, character development, dialogue, and whether it can be shot in the Greater Philadelphia area. That's all very important to us. Our readers are people that are affiliated with Philadelphia. You know, they might be screenwriting people, you know, screenwriting professors. They might be people that are local that have produced, you know, some, you know, a small film. You know, there are people like that, people in the industry. But once the screenplays reach the top 5 pilots and 5 screenplays that are feature length, then they go into the hands of these exciting judges, people like Lee Daniels and people like, you know, we had Lisa Zaritsky, you know, who produced Sex and the City. We had her, you know, as a judge for a while. You know, there are a lot of different people that we're very excited about who have made real projects and can make these real projects.
Sure. Jay Rowe, who hails from Delaware but thinks of himself as a Philadelphian, is the head of HBO. And so, so the point of all of this is that we're giving an opportunity to get more and more stories about Philadelphia out there, and these screenplays are being read and judged by some of the top people in the industry who really know Philadelphia and the Philadelphia region. And so that's a great tool for us to get more movies made in that way.
And to give our locals exposure. I mean, that's what it's about, is giving them a way to open the door for opportunities, you know, without moving, sorry, to New York or California or LA. try to give them a leg up right here.
Betsy, did you have a question?
Well, I did. I was thinking about David Morse, and a lot of people that are from the region want to come back and film here. But do you remember when he did the TV show Hack? And I keep looking over here because I had to look it up. But are any other TV shows thinking of being shot here? Because number one, how many people get jobs because of that? And it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks or years if they keep getting renewed. But I remember that because David Morse is such a big guy. I live in Center City, and the filming, a lot of it started right on my block, so I could sit on my balcony and watch him go past. And I was like a mini stalker, but 4 stories up. But how about TV shows?
Well, actually, Betsy, and hi, Betsy, and actually, a number of these that I've named are TV shows. Mayor of Easttown is a TV show. Servant is a TV show.
Dispatches.
Dispatches from elsewhere. Absolutely. I could like even pull up my own filmography on here and tell you.
This Is Us.
Yeah. Well, let me just see. Let me get my page here. And
yeah, that was just a couple episodes, or This Is Us. That wasn't set here. Same with How to Get Away with Murder. We had it for a while, and then it ended up moving to a soundstage. Right, Sharon? Am I right about that?
yes. So some of our past or some of our TV shows that are listed here are Servant, Dispatches from Elsewhere, Philadelphia: The Great Experiment, which is a documentary series. Let's see, there's more past television. Urban Trinity, Allegiance, How to Get Away with Murder, Do No Harm, Political Animals. These are all television series that have shot in Philadelphia. Outlaw, The Amazing Race, Hack, Philly, Christmas on Division Street. That was way back when I was actually a crew on that show. And so more recent ones that are working right now that are television, as I mentioned, is Mayor of Easttown.
But Betsy, you're right. Hack was wonderful. Hack was wonderful. It went on and on. And because our business is such a freelance business, I mean, it was wonderful for these people to know that they had employment over the long term. And I think that some of the studio development, Sharon, I mean, that if people we're trying to promote people moving in as television series into some of those spaces to go on and on. And, that's certainly in our thinking.
Greg, did you have a question?
Yeah, actually, I have a 2-part question. One, I also want to get some of your thoughts around shorts and music videos. I know that Philadelphia has had the ability to produce some of those. And then I also wanted to just see if you could talk a little bit about the business opportunity, whether it's in New York or Philadelphia, around the production of movies, television shows, or anything film for small businesses.
So, Greg, it's really a great question. What I would say to you is that we work on every single kind of production. We work with students. We work with students, films, documentaries, commercial. We got a call yesterday for a big international television commercial. That's great, fantastic business for us, and it's going to highlight Philadelphia. The reason they're coming here is because of SEPTA, because they're able to shoot on the subway, and there's not a lot of cities that will let you shoot on subways. So that was a call that we got yesterday that we're absolutely thrilled about, and there's nothing like big budgets like they have for TV commercials. Greg, what else did you say?
So the other was, well, music videos, if you want to comment on that, and then the other, the impact on small businesses.
So, oh yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Well, in terms of music videos, we knocking them out like every week. So there's lots of those. But I think that this is probably the key story that I would like to tell. I could talk about how many businesses are impacted by our industry, but I think this is the best way to describe it. When you're making a movie, when a movie is being made, what happens is that there is a person with an idea, a story. And that story is something that's written down on a piece of paper, typed out on a computer, and that's all it is. And then they sell that idea to people that will help to finance it. So all you've got when you're making a movie starts out as just words on a page. Then there's a director, there's a producer that's coming up with money, and then they decide where they're going to shoot it, and they have nothing. They literally, this is a business that has right now nothing. They have to then get a sound stage, they have to find locations, they have to bring in, they get a production office. That production office typically has nothing in it. They have to get desks and chairs and computers and water coolers and pencils and pens. And they have to feed all the people. They have to hire everyone. They have to get the food. They have to get trucks. They have to, there's literally, you're creating a business that has a lifetime of about a year, and you start with nothing. You spend millions of dollars locally because that's the easiest way to do it. So you're everything from your seamstresses to your fabrics to your, to the tools that you use, hardware and lumber, an enormous amount of lumber for building sets, and paint and walkie-talkies and a fleet of cars. These are all the kinds of things that anything that you can imagine, greenery, it's quite unbelievable. We create an entire world that has a lifespan of about a year, and the local spend is absolutely phenomenal. And the good part is that if it's a tax credit project, then we know exactly what they're spending and what they're spending it on and where, which is really great data.
Thank you.
I have a question, if I may. How can the tourism, or how does it work? Can the tourism and hospitality community partner with your office in terms of being suppliers? Or is there opportunities to do that kinds of thing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you going to say something
No,
else?
go right ahead.
So I invite all of you to go to film.org. Our website is film.org. So it's www.film.org, hashtag whatever. And you will find more information than you would have the time to watch. But we have a cruise and vendors catalog that is free to go on. It's a digital directory on our website, and everybody can list what they do, if they are crew, what their jobs are, what their credits are. They can put a video on there if you are a vendor of any kind. So vendors and companies can go on and list all of their services, whether it's a lawyer or an accounting firm or a camera, somebody who's got cameras or got all kinds of equipment that may be needed. I think you will be quite fascinated if you take a look at all of the opportunities there.
Great, thank you.
So welcome.
Also, if I can add, also hotels. I mean, we have very, very active relationship with all the hotels, because when people come into town, they need to put up crew, they need to put up their movie stars. That has been ongoing, and sometimes in different economy and in different times, there have been people that has been their job, to work with the productions and work with the hotels to make those matches.
I have a
hotels
question,
love us.
if I may. It's amazing the many TV shows and movies, I mean, made in our city, in Philadelphia. My question would be, what are the top 2 or 3 priorities or so that film companies go for when they look out for a site? What is the 3 major attractions that brings these movies to Philadelphia?
Sure, I will take a shot at that. So the first thing they want to know is, do you have tax credits? That's the first question. The second will be, do you, if it's something larger, it would be, do you have sound stages? Which we do. We didn't talk about that. In fact, we have a brand new soundstage facility that is coming online this summer that's in the city of Philadelphia. And in Delaware County, we have another major movie studio, which has 3 huge stages. And the new one is that we have in Philadelphia is actually going to have 8 stages. So we certainly have that. And we have smaller stages for smaller shows as well. And then finally, one of the things they want to know is, do you have local crew and local actors? And we do have both. And in Philadelphia, when it's fantastic because we're so close to New York, and there are so many actors who are New York actors who actually live in Philadelphia. And so that, they don't tell anybody because they can jump on a train and do an audition in the same day. But for the filmmakers, they don't have to put them up in hotels and pay them per diems, because we've got amazing casting directors and actors who are in Philadelphia region. So thanks for that question. That's a great one.
Can I add also that about our locations? I mean, we have incredible locations and very diverse locations to offer. And I also want to say that Sharon and her production team are hands-on, have a reputation as being incredible and moving mountains for movies. And that counts. I mean, that counts for a lot. People come back here because they were so well taken care of. So that's more than 3.
Yeah.
And to just give you something you haven't asked about, our economic impact since 1992 is now over $6 billion. That's real money. And that's just from the work that we've done. So we're very proud of it, and the future looks bright.
Fantastic.
Great, thank you. So we are about out of time here. So I do want to take a moment to thank both Sharon and Joan for their insights today. I think this was a very interesting and unique program that, made us think a little bit more about the impact that movies have in our city and in our area. So thank you again for your time today. I did list all of everyone's URLs here on the screen, so be sure to visit film.org and then also Skal New York's website and our website as well. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank